This episode will explore how the team at Santa Monica Studios is elevating the fluid and expressive combat of God of War Ragnarok, as well as the importance of building a unique, memorable, and varied cast of enemies for players to test their skill. Now, in the video, they stated that in God of War Ragnarok, Kratos has both his Leviathan Axe and Blades of Chaos at the start of the game, which is described to grant players more choice and options in terms of combat than the start of the previous God of War game. The Blades of Chaos are going to be absolutely game-changing in God of War Ragnarok, but more on that later in the video. In the video, the developers explained that having the Leviathan Axe and the Blades of Chaos at the beginning has allowed the enemy design to be more complex from the start and gave the developers the ability to focus on providing more variety and mini bosses for players to tackle. Combat designer Steven stated that we want to make something that makes players lean forward and focus and really try hard against that enemy and feel good about overcoming it, but we don't want to make them feel defeated if they can't figure something out. The senior combat animator Bert, who is my favorite person now, stated that they want this game to feel rewarding when you win, not because it was impossible, but because it was fun and engaging. Now, as I mentioned in my previous God of War Ragnarok video, one of the new mechanics of the game centers around Kratos' shield. In God of War 2018, the shield was really just that, a single-purpose shield to block incoming damage. For contrast, in God of War Ragnarok, you can pick and choose your shield based on what you need out of it. A smaller shield that is lighter allows you to parry a bit easier and also gives you a bigger window to perform a counterattack, with the caveat of the shield blocking less damage. If you choose to bring a larger shield to battle, it will make parrying a bit tougher, but be able to block more incoming damage. So if you're fighting an enemy that's a lot quicker, it would probably make more sense to bring a lighter shield, because usually enemies that are quicker yield less damage. And if you're carrying around a heavy shield, trying to parry an enemy that is a lot faster, it's going to be a lot harder than if you bring a smaller shield that can parry a lot easier. Or if you're going up against an enemy that's a lot bigger and packs a heavier punch but's a lot slower, it might be better to bring a larger shield. Continuing on with new combat changes and mechanics, we have some new details to talk about regarding how Atreus will be during battle. To quote in the video, in the last game, Atreus was just starting to fight alongside Kratos and was learning from the master tactician. So in this game, he's trying to prove himself a little bit more, and they stated in God of War Ragnarok, we built upon those mechanics with him. So you're going to see Atreus move more independently on his own as a companion, and even chaining attacks together and initiating fights with enemies before you even started. Atreus also has an arsenal of new magic abilities, which will give him new mechanics beyond the arrows he can fire. To continue on with gameplay mechanics, in God of War Ragnarok, as Kratos gets more powerful and progresses throughout the game, he will have access to newer combos and abilities that will increase the combat depth of each weapon. For instance, the blade grapple in God of War will not only be used to take down enemies like the previous game, but they will now be used as a traversal mechanic. For instance, like we've seen in the trailers, you will be able to grapple up to certain places that were previously unable to be reached. From there, Kratos will be able to take a sprinting leap off a cliff and slam into enemies below him, which will not only deal some damage, but it will also stun the enemies. Ragnarok has a much higher focus on verticality in the environment than the original game. One of my least favorite parts of God of War 2018 was it seemed pretty limited in movement. You walk near a place where you should be able to jump up to, and in God of War 2018, you couldn't reach it. But in this game, you'll be able to just grapple up to it. That type of freedom in the gameplay is something that I cannot wait to try out. Furthermore, as I described in my previous video, the Blades of Chaos and Leviathan Axe will have more depth to them. For instance, holding triangle with the Leviathan Axe out will apply Frost Awaken, and then pressing R1 during Frost Awaken will execute Frozen Breach, which is a wide swing that applies frost to enemies in the way of the swing. Now, if you aim while pressing R1, it will execute Frozen Spike, which is a quick throw of the axe that creates a frost explosion on impact. For contrast, when wielding the Blades of Chaos, mashing the triangle button will perform a Flame Whiplash, which will spin the blades and melt nearby enemies. I don't know about you guys, but I cannot wait to get some awesome photos with Kratos doing some insane moves with the Blades of Chaos and Leviathan Axe. But I'll talk more about the photo mode in just a few minutes. Another new mechanic that we have is the combo finishers. God of War 2018 had some awesome finishers, but in God of War Ragnarok, during battle, when you build up your stun meter in this game, it will give you the ability to decapitate the enemy you're fighting. Furthermore, you will be able to choose which weapon you want to have out when you go for that final blow. Sony Santa Monica truly went above and beyond with the gameplay in this game. Everything that we've seen so far is beyond exceeding my expectations. Now, as far as enemies go, according to the video, the team's design philosophy for creating new and memorable enemies is basically making them a combat puzzle similar to chess. Each piece has its own theme and its own use. You need to be able to see what's happening in an instant and react as the player. For example, like the rings in in the last game, to even audio cues revealing if the attack is able to be blocked or if you will need to dodge it. In God of War Ragnarok, the developers explain that the level of diversity that the enemies of this game will offer will be unmatched. From small creatures to enemies that will take up the entire screen. Each enemy featuring their own playstyle, design, fantasies, and of course references to Norse mythology. Moving on to the next bit of news for God of War Ragnarok. For those of you that are fans of games with photo mode, we do have some news that God of War Ragnarok will feature a photo mode. It will unfortunately not be available at launch though. The Sony Santa Monica Twitter said, and I quote, "Photo mode will be coming to God of War Ragnarok after launch. We'll share more details closer to when we plan to release it. We can't wait to see all of your captures once it's live." Now, this is obviously unfortunate news, especially if you're a fan of photo mode in other games like Spider-Man Remastered, Spider-Man Miles Morales, and basically every other PlayStation exclusive title at this point. If you were hoping to capture moments throughout your playthrough, then you're gonna have to wait. But either way, I am glad it's gonna be implemented eventually. Now, as for when that's gonna happen, it's really hard to say at this point. My guess is we're gonna see it in the game a few months after launch. So for now, the PlayStation share button is gonna have to do. That brings us to our next topic of conversation, and that is the unfortunate situation that is currently ongoing, and that is God of War Ragnarok has been leaked. Earlier this week, industry veterans, press, and other folks alike received early copies of God of War Ragnarok for the purpose of first impressions and reviews, and a Twitter account for a user that received an early copy started auto-posting screenshots they took while playing the game utilizing the PlayStation share button. And because of that happened, a bunch of details about the game, videos, images, and all of that were posted online, showcasing story spoilers and other gameplay leaks. And overall, it is just a messy situation. I really empathize for Sony Santa Monica with this stuff happening. It's never fun to do. I actually received a strike on my channel from Sony Santa Monica trying to clean up all of the leaks and spoilers. Luckily, a community manager reached out to me and they were able to help me appeal the strike that was on my channel that took down my last God of War Ragnarok video. So huge thank you to that community manager, and apologies if that video went down while you were trying to watch it. It's unfortunate, but they were able to get it sorted out. So for those of you that browse social media, I strongly urge you to set up keywords to mute. If you don't want God of War Ragnarok details spoiled, it's probably best to limit the amount of online activity you do and only watch YouTube channels that you know are not going to have any spoilers, like my channel. Be careful, guys. We've only got about 2 weeks left to dodge roll and parry spoilers, so best of luck. That's gonna wrap it up with this video, guys. I cannot wait to get my hands on God of War Ragnarok. November 9th legit cannot come soon enough. Let me know in the comment section if you will be playing God of War Ragnarok day 1